All right, we'll go ahead and hit the go live. All right, and we are definitely live now. Welcome everybody to this Monday show. This is called the Stand-Up, part of the bigger series that is called "You Don't Know Me Till You Clone Me." And the idea is that over time, I want to develop a good body of work, and so that way, if somebody does try to clone me, at least they can clone my content and me, at least the way I build my work, as opposed to coming up with other stories that I might not want. Anyway, so I want to build my body of work. So the goal of this Monday session is called the stand up, and partially also because my goal in maybe about 15 years or so is to eventually partially retire into stand up because I enjoy making people laugh. But it's really to talk about parenthood, my experiences in leadership, my thoughts on leadership, and just general musings in life that I find over time. I post a lot of things on LinkedIn or Twitter, maybe sometimes on Reddit, and some of those sometimes warrant deeper conversations or deeper thoughts. Things around mental health, as an example, which will be a key part of the show. And so that's what this Monday segment is. Currently set to bi-weekly, every other Monday. And please join the live stream and ask your questions and join the show. Anything sort of technical, particularly around Web3 and blockchain, I will keep off till the Friday show. Every Friday, I do run another stream just called Ask Shy or Ask Shy because sh.ai. So that Friday session is specifically about Web3 and blockchain and some of the tech around that. Anything sort of not related to that, I'll cover today. Um, so let's start off. Let's start off with one particular topic and one of the things I wanted to talk about today. The goal will be about a half an hour show, so we'll wrap up at the 40-minute mark or so. And as time goes on, I hope to make this more engaging and a deeper conversation and more Q&A. You can join the backstage through the crowdcast or join on the live stream or the replay. Be sure to subscribe somewhere down there. And so for the next about 27 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about one of the key themes today, which is specificity and conviction. They really go hand in hand, and it's something that I get asked very often. Why I'm so particular about certain words, or why when I write, I am so particular about using certain words, or I comment certain things. And for some background, I was a document bar raiser during my time at AWS. And it's part of the things I enjoyed was reading a lot of documents, right? Both technical and business and everything in between, and getting to review the document for technical content, business strategy and stuff like that, but also just for grammar and structure, formatting, weasel words, buffer words, data points, stuff like that. And so just over time, I continued to build more of that really peculiarness, if you will, over specific words. And as I developed my writing, um, I would say particularly the last year or two, I've really been focusing on communication. And so one of those key parts in communication is that perception, right? It's about how you come off. It's that key messaging. Now, to me, the important part, right, and how it relates to specificity, is that your words hold value, and it's something that I've always believed. That really stems from the early days of my father really enforcing this concept and this idea that your words are your word is your word, right? Because um, he was born in 1927, and so he would talk to me a lot about how when he was doing business, say sometime in the late 40s, maybe 50s or so, how a lot of things were just done over word. And so for him, in the context of business and daily life, the value of your word became very critical and very important. And so one of the key things that he taught me was to keep your word, right? That the words, the things that you say matter, right? That they hold weight. That something you say may be interpreted down the line in a certain way, right? And we've all played that broken telephone game. And so, if you're playing that broken telephone game, a little stuff there. You're playing that broken telephone game. We all know that that message can break over time, and so the idea is, if you can be very specific with your words, um, hopefully that message doesn't break or isn't as likely to break over time. And so that the challenge really that I kind of came to find was, how do you convey something that's really important, right? Something that's very detailed, but in very short form, very short words. And so that's still a challenge for me. It's something I find very difficult. I think the other part of it also is, um, I am autistic. I'm on the spectrum as well. And so I think there's a part of that that is also very keen to, certain words, right? And a certain word means something. Um, and so the other part is really around conviction, right? And so I think it's really important that, when you think of something, you have that conviction. Now, that's not something that I really used very frequently up until 6 years ago, again, when I started AWS. And really, the way I really came to understand and hold value to the word conviction was really around the idea that if you believe strongly in something, um, you really strongly believe in it, that's conviction, right? And the example there was the hiring stage or the hiring process. And as a simple way to put it, um, if 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 during the interview process, right, and I was a bar raiser there as well, so the candidates are looked at, that if you are not above the bar, right, or you're on the fence about a candidate, you're not sure about somebody, then you're not inclined because you don't have that conviction, right? You have to be really strong and really firm. And as I continue to interview people and mentor interviewees and like help them and help interviewers as well, mentor them as well, that was really the focus, right? Is, do you have conviction on something, right? So if you believed that this person showed a bias for action, or if you believe that they showed ownership on a particular activity or task they did, maybe they took ownership of a new project or an opportunity to deploy a new firewall or something. When you heard that story, do you have conviction that they showed ownership? Like, I do firmly believe that, right? Are you willing to stand up for that and and fight for it? And I think that's really what I came to, right? And it's kind of hard because I already have, because of my PTSD in a sense, this idea of fight or flight. And so this conviction in a sense is also sometimes an area of tension for me, because I have that firm conviction. I feel very strongly about something, and yet I sometimes need to really balance that out with other things like simplifying and try to find a new way to do something. And so I think those two things are really keen and important there. Um, let me kind of dig into a little more, right? When I think of both of these from the context of either fatherhood or parenthood, it's kind of the same thing. It's I'm a father, so it's called fatherhood. But if you think about it from the context of parenthood, we have to be very specific with our kids, right? And so when we're talking to our children and we're giving them instructions and we're sharing something with them or we're guiding them to do something, it's very important that we're very specific. As an example, I was cutting a table yesterday with my son, and I had to say, when you're cutting it, make sure you're cutting it in this direction, that you're using this blade, and that you're not pushing the jigsaw too hard forward, right? Because in a kid's mind, they don't know those things yet. And so if you just say, cut the board, they have no idea. If you say cut it slowly, even, what does that mean? And so, depending on the child level, depending on the level of experience, you have to be more specific. And again, that's an area that I find challenging, because sometimes the ADD or what it might be, I just want to run and get something done, right? And so it's very challenging, but I think it's something that I've put a lot of weight on, and I'm trying to do a lot better on, is learning to be specific with my kids, right? And state what my expectation is, and then let them operate within the bounds of that, right? They can choose how they want to do it, but I've been specific about what it is that I want, right? So maybe I expect you to get homework done by this time, or I expect you to go to bed by this time, whatever it might be. Again, that doesn't always work. It's not magic, but the idea is that clear language really helps, at least my kids, understand what that boundary is, and it does for me as well, right? Something I've always benefited from is when somebody asks me something, even at work, right? If they're fairly clear about it, then I can get it done. If they're ambiguous about it, it's fine as well. I've learned to operate and I thrive in that kind of ambiguous environment. But then then I'm kind of figuring out, okay, what is it that they want? And I've built the tools, I built the ways to find that out, whether it's asking questions or feedback, KPIs, whatever. But, a child doesn't have that, a teen doesn't have that. Um, and that's hard to teach our kids, right? You can't teach them to do KPIs and do all these things. So they need that specificity. And I think we owe it to them, right? I don't think it's fair to assume that our kids will just know what they're going to, what you wanted them to do or how to do it. And I think, again, I've been guilty of that in the past. And it's something, again, that I've worked on. My wife's helped me a lot just in learning that you have to be specific with your expectations, right? Or be specific with the instructions. Um, and then the conviction part of that, right, is the passion that you have at something. So when you're specific, let's say, um, when you're showing them that passion, but you're also very specific about that task, it helps them understand how to go through who's got to go through that. I'm thinking of a good example, and I might come back to that one. Um, yeah, let me see. I'll come back to that one. So I think that's an important one, right? To show kids as a father, as a parent, that I have that conviction for something, whether it's, if I'm building a 3D printer, an example, right? I have that conviction that I want to finish it. I want to do this, right? I firmly believe that I can do this, right? So it's just having that strong belief, I think, is really important there. Probably need to dig into that one a little deeper. Um, when when I kind of pivot a little bit, I think about the leadership side of things, just to kind of start wrapping up. And we'll talk about mental health here as well. So when I think about it from a leadership context as well, it's not too far from the children's side, because when you show that conviction, you're inspiring people, right? That's how you really become somebody that inspires others, right? It's that conviction, right? That firm belief, right? Like my firm belief in the workplace over the last, I don't know, 3 years or so, on Web3 and blockchain, inspired other people to go down similar paths, right? Inspire people to um, carve out their niche within the space and learn and share with others in the way that they want to. And I think that's a really powerful thing, right? When you can inspire people, they're doing it because they want to, right? And you inspire people by just having that conviction, right? If they see that firm belief, then they may believe it too, or they would at least be inspired to learn about it, right? And I think that's the important part. It's about showing that conviction and inspiring them. I don't want to force them. You don't want to. You're not trying to convince them, right? Like conviction and convince, right? Like we can look at those, right? You're trying to show them that you really firmly believe in something and why you believe in it, right? It's that conviction of your belief. It's not why you should believe it, right? I'm not trying to convince you why you should believe it because these are my opinions that I'm imposing on you, right? No, I'm just sharing that passion. Sometimes it comes off as ranting as well, right? And that's okay, right? It just, again, this is where the specificity part comes in. This is the challenge, right? You want to show that conviction, you want to show that passion, but you also don't want it lost in kind of the just the sort of excitement, right? Because I've had that sometimes where it's like, okay, well, what is it that you're trying to build, right? What is it that you're trying to do? And I kind of have to back off a bit. I have to, take a few breaths, and then I can sort of convey that message with more specificity, right? I'm trying to build, this messaging protocol that will do this service, right? Or I'm trying to build this three-tier architecture that's going to be this kind of front-end application for this customer service that they're trying to build, right? So having that specificity then as a leader then also allows people to understand what it is that's your vision, right? You're not leaving a lot of ambiguity in your vision as a leader, right? Now there's already going to be ambiguity anyways, right? Because either sometimes you're at a high level, you're talking about something that's emerging that people don't quite fully grasp yet. Um, but by being specific, again, it gives them that goal that they can then carve out their own path to, right? So if I say, for example, right, that in an intro to Web3 course, right, you should at least understand what is happening when you conduct a transaction, right? When you hit the sign or you hit approve, right, what is happening in that? Sorry, I promise not getting the Web3 stuff. When you're doing something on the technical side, right, where is that specificity? Um, and so by giving that specific detail, right, it allows people to then know what it is that you want, right? Probably why you want it because you show that conviction, that specificity, and then help them build and design towards that. All right. So it touches a little bit on sort of on specificity and conviction in fatherhood as well as in leadership. I think there's a lot more areas to explore here. This is an area that I definitely want to dig into. I just wanted to start off kind of this first session with, um, why I'm doing this, right? Because I have conviction that this is important. I have conviction that from what I've heard from others, that the way I talk about mental health, the way I talk about leadership, the way I talk about parenting on LinkedIn, even right, as a business forum, right, in the context of business, right, I talk about those things. I've been told it's helpful, and so I have conviction that this format will be helpful, right? I know that I can use this format to create alternative formats that will also help other people. So I have conviction that this sort of live stream format is the way to get started in the way that helps, right? And then ideally, I have specificity because each session or show has a particular topic I'm going to cover. All right, so with that, let's get into the mental health side. So why is specificity important? So when I think of times in the past, right, when I've been given that ambiguity, right, and I'm not talking necessarily about the workplace, right, more at home as a child, particularly, um, when I was given a lot of that ambiguity of, hey, do this the way that you want to. I did it in the way that I wanted to, right, the way that I thought was the right way to do it, and so I was kinda given that freedom to do it, but the challenge also is that there's not that guidance as well. And so, in many cases as a kid, it actually led to a lot more frustration because of that ADD I had, right? Possibly even some mild autism at a young age. Just this idea of, okay, what is it that my parents want, right? They're not being specific with what they want. There's no conviction, right? They're maybe saying we need to clean the house, and there's ambiguity there, right? Or they're saying you need to clean your room, and my room looks clean to me, even though it might not be, right? To me, it's clean, right? And so when I'm told to clean it at a young age, well, what does that mean? And so it creates a lot of tension. It creates a lot of frustration um, in a child. I think sometimes when they don't know what it is, right? They don't know what that clarity is, and so what I've found over time and growing up is that while again I can operate in that ambiguity, when when there were all those times as a kid of of a lack of specificity, right? A lack of conviction from my parents, it led to that ambiguity, right? Now, maybe that's why I developed the tools that I have, right? Maybe that's why I have the resources that I have because I was always figuring things out on my own. But it still led to a lot of frustration. And so what happens a lot of times is when I'm working on things, I I want to work with others. I want to get that perspective from other people, right? I want to have an alternate perspective, right? I may build something, I may do something, but I don't want to just do it alone in a vacuum or in a hole. Now, I think again that it's a good thing, right? I've turned what could be a negative side, right, into something that's really positive and works really well for me, right? It could be something that in some cases as a child and even in some cases as an adult, right? There's really that desire for validation, right? I would like to be validated, right? And I think everybody wants that in a way, right? When you work on something, when you build something, you want to have that validation, right? That hey, what you're working on is correct, what you're doing is right. It's going to go, you're not doing something stupid or something inappropriate or something harmful, right? So I think there's always that desire for validation. Um, and at least as a child, and I think in some cases an adult, when you're put into that situation of ambiguity and lack of really definition, it's more confusing than anything. Now, again, this doesn't mean that it's a blanket case for every kid. It doesn't mean it's a blanket case every time for every kid, right? I know with my kids, there are plenty of times when they can operate things on their own, and there are other times when they need a lot more direction. It just depends what it is, and depends sometimes if they got enough sleep. It could be they ate something bad, right? And so something they didn't like. So all these things that affect your mental health can become a challenge, right? And again, that's why that specificity is important. Now, the conviction side, again, very similarly, when as a child, I would see that passion for something, um, or that enthusiasm, right? That really firm belief for something. It gave me that confidence as a kid of like, okay, this thing's important, right? Well, I still wanted to understand, I still wanted to know. It gave me that confidence, right? And so in a way over time as well, when I think of the conviction of the mental health side, when I've had those challenges of, okay, am I doing this or am I doing that, right? Because some things are ambiguous. It's helped me to have that conviction as well, and to say, well, there's all these different options. My brain's going 100 miles an hour, right? There's all these different things going on. I need to make a decision quick, right? In some cases that's often I can't sit there for 15, 20 minutes and ponder through something as much as I want to. I can't. And so, right, which is the option that I have the most conviction on, right? Do I believe the strongest on based on my previous experience, based on the data, based on other parameters in the situation, right? Which is the one that I have that strongest and firm conviction. Now, the conviction doesn't mean that you can't change your mind either, right? It just means that at that in that moment you have that strong belief. And generally, when you have that strong belief, you're not gonna shift it within the next like hours or days, right? It may change over time. So again, that conviction helps form for me. For example, I have conviction of that I want to dig more into Web3 and blockchain. I want to eventually move to stand up or work in stand up. I eventually want to do some voiceovers, right? I have conviction on these things, and so they help me build that structure, right? They help me set up that structure that I need to know kind of what I'm working towards in the future, right? And again, it's okay if it changes. The path and the journey may be different along the way. That's fine. It's mostly about having that conviction to get there. All right, time 5 minutes. We're almost going to wrap up here. Just look at my notes a little bit here. That's it. So I think I'll wrap it up sort of a few things and then we'll finish off. So, I think the when it comes to communication, right, that specificity is important. Um, Whether it's because you're setting precedents in a situation, for example, if you're in a business role, leadership role, um, whether it's you're trying to communicate things out and you want to make sure that you're saying the correct things, that you're getting the right message out there, right? That specificity is important because your words carry on in time. Um, and those words can be sort of misconstrued, or if you're not specific with things, right, people can get confused, as I'm sure some people will during parts of the show. Just because this is the first one and I don't have, you know really specific messages at every crisp point, there's going to be a little bit of that confusion, and that's okay, right? But that's part of improving, right? It's about understanding, maybe in this case, right, better, what are the audience, right? What are the specific content that I want to go over, right? Having a lot of detail to go over that, right? And then being very specific and deliberate with those words. And even though I'm sort of delivering and running this ad hoc, it's still trying to be very specific with my words. So again, it's just something that's important to me. I think it's something that we need to be more mindful with, at least, right? In a society that has a lot of challenges with um, sort of hype news and FUD and sensationalized headlines. I think it's a real challenge and risk that we run as a society to words, right? Because we've already seen the damage that can do when it carries on, and the conviction just goes along with that, right? When you have strong conviction, you have strong opinions, you have strong beliefs, it's harder to sensationalize those. It's harder to sort of misconstrue it and try to um, sort of dissect it in a different way, because right, that passion is there. And when you cut a clip out of it, when you rearrange the clip in some way, when it's written in text as an example, right, that conviction, that passion is really missing. And so again, that conviction is key for that belief. All right, I think that's gonna wrap up of this show. Hopefully, future sessions will be a little more organized, right, about things about mental health and leadership and parenthood. I tried kind of in this episode to weave this idea of specificity and conviction into one narrative in about the 30-minute mark or so, and we're right at that 30-minute mark. Um, so future shows will be similar, kind of just me talking about something about a particular topic in the sort of mental health, leadership, parenthood, and just general life musings. If there's any topics or things that you're interested in, please do add them. Thank you for the questions that came in during the chat, and to contribute to a little bit of discussion here. In the future, I do hope for a lot more interactive sessions. So please be sure to subscribe somewhere down there, and be sure to join the Friday session, Ask I, specifically on Web3 blockchain. Thank you, everybody, and take care.